Hey everyone, Clay here. Just wanted to let you know I've got a new comic book out right now from Comixology Originals and Amazon. It's called Hardstyle Juice. It's a professional wrestling murder mystery, so if you're into pro wrestling and comics and all that good stuff, you're going to want to check it out. And it's free to read if you have Amazon Prime. It's a digital-only comic. If you want to check it out, head over to hardstylejuice.com, and that'll direct you right to the page where you can check it out. That's hardstylejuice.com. Thanks, guys. Out on the wily, windy moors, we rolled and falled in green. I don't know what the actual lyrics are.
Heathcliff? It's me.
You were the president of my fantasies, so proud. We are back. It's the Rotten Horror Picture Show, horror film podcast, where we talk about films off the Rotten Tomatoes 200 best horror movies of all time list. But we are getting to the end. The air is getting chilly.
Mm-hmm.
It's the fall is about to roll in.
Yes.
And it's time to come home from the Summer Cabin series, where we've been covering all the films in the Evil Dead franchise. My name is Clay. With me, as always, is Amanda. How you doing, Amanda?
I'm good. I'm ready to come home from my vacation cabin in the woods to my almost condemned high-rise in downtown L.A.
Yeah, I mean, a couple lateral moves there, and I think that's pretty accurate for where we both live.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah.
Yes, we are talking about the, as of this recording, final film, or I should just say the most recent film in the Evil Dead franchise, Evil Dead Rise from 2023. This is not on our main list. It has an 84% Rotten Tomatoes score with a 76% audience score. Had you seen this before?
I had not. I actually really wanted to see this one when it came out, and I feel like I just missed the window.
Yeah. I saw it in theaters. I was I saw it with a couple friends of mine who were in town for a comic book convention. We were both excited to do that. It's funny because you think the way people approach conventions as people who like work conventions and table conventions can be very different. Because we had a couple friends coming in, and one of my friends was like, oh, absolutely, we're going to see Evil Dead Rise. And then the other one was like, I would rather go to the bar and get drunk.
Fair enough. Two equally valid options.
Yes.
Yes. One,
better for your career, arguably, but who's to say which one?
The other, going to the movies.
Yes. I don't really know what else to say about it before we get into it. So, were you going to say something?
I was just going to ask, when you saw it, did you have a generally favorable opinion? Mixed feelings?
My opinion of it was generally positive, and I think it's about the same as I feel about it now. Because we'll get into it.
Sure.
So we are going to take a quick break. Actually, before we get into that, jeez, I'm sorry, I'm coughing all over the place. How did you feel about when this was first announced? Did you have any strong feelings?
I think I was a little bit surprised because it seemed like they were going for. I was confused. I think, like, was it a reboot? Was it a requel? Was it something new? And it just, I don't know. It seemed kind of like an interesting choice to go back to this franchise, and all of the advertising and the trailers and everything had no obvious connection to the prior movies.
Yeah.
So I was a little bit like, I wonder how this came about.
Yeah.
Because like Ash vs. Evil Dead, the TV show, was going on?
That
had just wrapped up or something?
Yes, I think that had already happened. This is 2023. That was just last year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, what year are we? Yeah, so Ash versus Evil Dead, it was basically done.
Yeah.
And so I guess this was their way of continuing the franchise.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's interesting the way that they've been taking this.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I'm curious to see how long they can keep doing this, because on the one hand, I do like the idea of just different stories that involves people accidentally summoning demons from the Necronomicon.
Yes.
But at what point does that start to run stale?
Right. Right. It's sort of this interesting tension that we've seen in a lot of the franchises we've covered, where it's like, how do you walk that line between trying too hard to either recreate or connect back to the original versus being so different that it feels like something from a different universe entirely.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
how do you strike the balance between those two, where it's like not so disconnected, you're like, why is this called an Evil Dead movie? But also not just a total rehash of what's already happened.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do think Bruce Campbell he has to feel good about this, though, because they've basically determined that he is so irreplaceable to the franchise.
Yeah, that they can't do it.
Make new characters, or I should say they can't make new returning characters. They just need to keep
they can't
making new stories, completely
Ash.
new stories. Yes.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're going to take a quick break, play the trailer for you, and then we will talk about it.
What's up, sis?
I had the most beautiful dream.
It was the perfect day. And all I could think about was how much I wanted to cut you all open and then climb inside your bodies. So that we could stay one happy family.
When I was just a little girl, I asked my mother,
What is this, Danny?
I found it.
what will I be? Will I be pretty? Will I be rich? Here's what she said to me.
Open up now.
You don't look so good, Mom.
Nothing a big old kiss from you won't fix.
I'm getting us out of here. I promise.
You'd be a good mom someday, Honey Pie.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, you know how to lie to kids. Mom?
Mommy's with the maggots now.
What will be, will be.
Okay, Evil Dead Rise, written and directed by Lee Cronin, starring Lily Sullivan, Alyssa Sutherland, Gabrielle Eccles, Morgan Davies, Nell Fisher, and Bruce Campbell as, quote, dissenting voice on record.
Oh.
He's the one, I didn't catch it when I saw it the first time, but I knew to look for it. He's the one when he's playing the recording of all the priests and stuff.
Yeah.
The one who says, you got to destroy it. It's called the Book of the Dead.
The one moment that could be something close to humor in this movie.
Yeah. Amanda, what happens in Evil Dead Rise?
A reunion between two estranged sisters gets cut short by the rise of flesh-possessing demons. thrusting them into a primal battle for survival as they face the most nightmarish version of family imaginable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's a pretty good summary. Well, Clay, some things you'll find in Evil Dead Rise include Stephanie.
Stephanie, hero of the movie. I take it back.
The actual final girl.
Yes, Bruce Campbell, replaceable. Stephanie, irreplaceable.
Yes, totally agree. The Perils of Urban Blight.
Yes, yeah. That building had a lot of things wrong. I was surprised at how many people were still there. But I guess, that's how the housing market is.
Shit happens, man. Yeah. Henrietta's Pizza.
Yeah, it's speaking of how to keep this going with new stories, they all have things that they call back to. This one has a more winky callbacks than 2013 did.
Yeah.
But I think that they are still fairly subtle. But basically, like, let's say they keep doing these for 20 more years. They make 5 more of these. At what point do you start referencing the 2013 movie? Or,
right,
you know
or
what I mean?
the condemned high-rise that they found those people who'd been put through a wood chipper in.
Right.
That kind of thing. Let me see. What else do you find? Jump Scare Jesus.
Yes. I was thinking about it. I'm not 100% sure, but I think, doesn't that happen in The Fog? Don't they do a fake out jump scare with a big crucifix? Or am I completely misremembering?
I can't remember if it's a fake out jump scare or just a dramatic cut.
Yeah.
But you're right. There is a dramatic turn to Jesus moment.
Anyway.
It's definitely some of those in The Exorcist 3.
Yes. Literal turn to Jesus.
Manual scalping.
Yeah, that was pretty good. That was pretty brutal.
Yeah. Facial mutilation by drone, tattoo needle, wine glass, teeth, and scissors.
Yeah. What else do you need?
All the major food groups covered there.
Yeah.
Normal mom dreams.
Yes, dreaming of smothering and killing her children. Is
Oh
that
no,
what it was?
cutting
What was
them
it?
open and crawling inside
That's
their
what it
bodies
was.
so
Yes.
you can
Well,
be
hey.
one big happy family forever.
Foreshadowing. That's what we call that.
Exactly. The Necronomicon.
Yes, we have a new book.
Yes, redesigned.
Not only redesigned,
Oh right,
but
it's
a
a
new
different edition.
copy.
Yeah.
It is the
Yeah.
It is the 20th anniversary edition of the Necronomicon. Or I should say, sorry, Natura Demotum, because apparently that's the only name that they have the rights to.
Bigger, skinner, and full of teeth.
I do like that idea because one of the things that I always found funny in Lovecraft stories, which is obviously where the Necronomicon name comes from,
Yes.
is that there's multiple copies out there.
Yeah.
Like there's one that's in Miskatonic University or
Fuck
one
yes.
that's somewhere else. And I always found that very funny because it's like you would think a book like that wouldn't have multiple copies available.
I mean, people keep like reading from it and doing shit with it. Of course, they're copying it.
Yeah. I like that they have competing editions in Lovecraft stories where it's like they have one that's translated from like the original Arab Sanskrit or
language,
something.
yeah.
But the Greek one is translated kind of weird. So that's
It's like the King James Bible.
Yeah. There's a couple that are missing pages.
Literal eyeball gag.
Yeah, another callback. Evil Dead 2.
Literal.
Bites it out of his eye, spits it into the guy's mouth, gags on it.
Yeah. A Toni Collette style background wall crawl.
Always good.
Always the best. A grand shunting.
Yeah, pretty much, basically.
Yeah.
As close as we'll get in a modern movie, I think.
Not the car.
Not the car. This is the biggest cop-out. It's the climax of this movie.
To the car.
The climax of this movie literally takes place in a parking garage.
Yeah.
Put the car in the background.
Should probably be somewhere in
There's
the background.
multiple shots
You
of
don't
the
have
exterior.
to get them in it, but you
No.
could have them walk by it.
She was sitting on it in the last one. It was
Yeah.
like all rotted out.
Yeah.
This takes place in there's multiple shots
Just
of the outside
have one,
of the building.
up on some cinder blocks.
Or have it drive by outside.
Well, yeah. You can do all sorts
The
of stuff. with it.
cop-out is that he said, well, the car's not in it, but the chainsaw is actually the same color as the car. Bullshit. Bullshit.
But also, Clay, things you will not find in this movie include Jessica's shitty friends.
Probably for the best, at least as far as
for
they go.
them,
Yeah.
but as far as friends go,
This is
poor
why
girl, she's got a shitty boyfriend. She's got a cousin who doesn't really want to hang with her.
Mm-hmm.
And she's got shitty friends who don't even come to the cabin she rented.
This is why you should always flake on plans.
Because your friends might be possessed by a Lovecraftian horror.
Hey, I consider it every time
You're
I
still
have somewhere
friends
to
with
go.
me.
Yeah, and I consider it every time we hang out. Sometimes afterwards, I go, I don't know. Today might have been the day.
I do have a lot of weird books.
That's true.
It is true.
So, it's been 10 years since Evil Dead 2013.
Mm-hmm.
As we mentioned.
And it doesn't show.
Does it? Do you not think so? Or are you being facetious?
I mean, I actually don't think they feel that far apart.
I don't think they do. So I think the very first shot of this movie was I was jarring to me because it was
drone opening.
Yeah, it was so clean.
Yes,
it was like the
that's
cleanest photography of flying through the woods anyone has ever shot. And now I suppose you could say, well, it is a drone. It's not the monster or whatever. But I did find it, it felt like we were fully entrenched in the modern era of digital photography. Not that 2013, I'm sure they shot 2013 on digital too, but that one still has some grit to it.
Yeah.
And as this started, I was like, uh-oh.
Fair. I was thinking more of the rest of the movie.
Yes, I would say, yeah. I would say...
But you're right. The opening actually, it kind of threw me off too.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, what? Why? What is happening? Why are we like this?
I think I guess we should start by talking about that opening because it's my least favorite part of the movie.
Same.
And it feels very much like they got a list of things they had to put in the movie for it to be an Evil Dead movie.
A cabin in the woods.
Yes. And it's like you can put these elements in however you would like it to, however you would like to. But there must be...
But they have to show up.
A cabin. There must be a chainsaw.
Yeah.
There must be X, Y, and Z. There must be the book, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And I'd like to throw it back to our friend, listener Kyle, who wrote a nice article on outoflives.net called Evil Dead and Evil Dead Rise Have Prologue Problems. And he says, I love Rise's opening. What's the issue? I think as its own piece, it's great, but it doesn't connect to the rest of the film naturally. It's a great short film stitched into the start of a different film entirely. I would agree with that. I don't know if I love it, though. I think it's... So, to jump back to when I saw this the first time, my thought for about the first 20 minutes was, I don't think this is any good.
Yeah.
It's... The opening was a little too cute.
Yeah.
And once they get into the meat of it with the family, I found myself thinking, and I guess this was me not giving the movie enough credit, but I found myself thinking, this is going to be the kids don't get hurt. It's going to be about the sister saving the kids. There's going to be the expendable neighbors who turn into monsters, but it's going to be a heartwarming story about the saving of a family. And it technically is, but there's only one of them left. So once it got going, like once, who's the middle kid?
Bridget. Yeah.
Once Bridget turned, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, this movie's going to go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that opening scene.
Yeah. So the opening, I really disliked the first couple minutes. The drone shot, the shitty boyfriend on the pier. I started, because I'm a giant literature nerd, as you all know, I started to have at least a little bit of a sort of, that's fun, when when the cousin sat down in the same room as Jessica, who's sick on the bed, and started reading Wuthering Heights, and they started doing the demon could recite it like that. I was sort of like, all right, this kind of pushes the button, the literature nerd button for me. So this is fun. By the time she was shoving the drone into her own face and decapitating her boyfriend and throwing his twitching head back onto the dock, I was sort of like, all right, I'm willing to give this movie a chance. Because it was, it started off as sort of like the The thing that I really didn't like, and that is part of what made me say initially that this movie didn't feel very far from 2013 to me, was it has that very late aughts, early 2010s, everybody kind of sucks, but has really like clever cutting dialogue. You know, like everyone's just kind of constantly like shit talking each other in really fast little quips. And I was just like, please don't let this be this whole movie. Like, please don't let everyone talk like this the whole fucking time.
Yeah.
Because I find it really grating. I think it still does it a little too much, even when you're first introduced to the main family with the teens and all of that. But at least it sort of mellows out, like as it goes, and bigger issues become the priority.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that opening scene it almost feels like a proof of concept short. Like I could see someone making this as an audition.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and I think some of the images in it and some of the gags they do in it are really good. Like her sitting with her back to the camera and having that demonic voice just kind of fill the room, I think was really effective. Having her rise up out of the lake and having the title rise up behind her. I mean, it looks fucking great. But yeah, it does feel a little weird to have this be the opening.
Yeah,
And
especially
you go back and the whole setting changes, all the characters change, the whole vibe shifts. It just feels very, very different as soon as you meet Beth and then she shows up at the apartment building.
Yeah, and when it hooks back around at the end, I don't know, it's like, yeah, I guess that's fun. It just it's not
kind
it's
of
just
funny.
so
Like I definitely laughed out loud when I realized what was going on.
Yeah.
But it was weird to have the whole climax happen and then have that on the end.
Yeah.
To not end it with the sort of the climax and the triumphant walking away. Like that's kind of where emotionally you want to leave it. And so to loop back to like, oh, this ditz and her
Yep.
You know, she's gonna go kill her friends now.
What is funny about that though is she apparently got possessed by the evil dead and then drove to her cousin's house.
Right.
And then drove to her boyfriend's house.
Right.
And then drove to a cabin.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where they want to be. You know, maybe that's maybe it's just about the evil getting home.
I mean, when Ellie is first possessed back in the apartment, she's talking about her normal mom dream. She says, I had the most beautiful dream. We were all in a forest of tall trees. So yeah, maybe they were all just homesick.
Yeah. But yeah, it's strange to have, I mean, that opening title is very cool.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about the throat clearing. I have to stop eating spicy food before I do this. But yeah, and it's a great...
It's just all the milky liquid you have started vomiting up this afternoon.
Yep, I ate too much glass from the wine. I see, when I drink wine, because of this movie, after I finish the wine, I eat the glass.
Yeah.
And wouldn't advise it. Blech. It's a really cool image, but it doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah.
My biggest problem with this when they announced it was the title, because I thought the title was kind of awkward. Because it's like Evil Dead Rise. Okay, it's a building. It's like a high-rise building. I get that. I guess it's like Rise as in, you know,
Rise from the Dead.
Yeah. I think if that was the intent, they probably should have put the Evil Dead Rise. Makes sense. I don't know. Who knows? But
yeah.
I've always thought it was a little bit clunky.
Yeah, it's not the best title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, once it gets into the main characters of the movie,
the aggressively alternative family of the movie.
Yeah, that made me roll my eyes a bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
The first time,
it's just a little too much.
Yeah.
You know, like it's a little too much to have baby DJ in his bedroom, and then like the Bridget, the middle child, sort of being like, "Oh, Mom, you didn't wash my T-shirt for the protest."
Yes.
And then, you know, the quirky youngest kid decapitating one of her dolls and putting it on a big wooden stick.
Yeah.
Like, it's just all, and then the mom's a tattoo artist and she's like playing with her tattoo gun in the house with her children around. It's just a little bit like, all right, we get it.
Yeah, and the dialogue is borderline groan-worthy in spots.
Yeah.
So when I saw it, I was like, oh, Jesus, that's what this whole thing is going to be.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, it's a little bit too quippy.
Yep.
I believe the actor who plays Danny is either non-binary or trans.
Cool.
I can't remember, but I mean, I did love that they never brought that up.
Yeah.
Not that you shouldn't, but it's like, it's nice.
No, it was nice
that they
because,
can
like,
just
in the context of their
exist.
family, why would they?
Right.
It would be like being like, oh, your hair's blonde. Like,
yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, letting that kind of but that's the thing. I wish this movie, in the introducing of the family, let a little more of it go unspoken. You know, because it's that initial sequence of kind of meeting all of them and then Beth showing up. It's a little too on the nose of like going out of its way to describe everybody.
Yeah.
And I wish it just sort of chilled out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think those elements also are part of what made me underestimate it, because I have noticed that when as sometimes in horror movies, when the cast becomes more diverse, sometimes it gets a little too precious with those characters.
Sure.
And so I'm seeing young girl,
Yep.
non-binary child,
Single mom.
I'm like, okay, they're not going to kill these characters.
Yeah.
But they did.
Yep.
And it was great. but basically, long story short, the beginning kind of drags, and then once things get going, it gets really good.
Yeah, it does. I was genuinely shocked. Like I admitted to you fully when we were watching it together and chatting about it that I was literally baking brownies at the beginning. And I'm glad I got to a point in my brownie adventure where it was, out of the oven and I could sit down and really pay attention, because it timed right when things started to take off.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Well, you did miss a big part.
Yeah, I did.
Because Amanda says to me, I think she's pregnant.
Yep.
And I'm like, did she not see the scene when the very
Brownies,
first scene?
dude.
More important than motherhood, I agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, how do you feel about this setup? Because the biggest hangover, I guess you could say, or the biggest addition that Evil Dead 2013 brought to the franchise that seems to continue into this in the modern era of horror that we are in.
Yes.
Is that there's actually a story going on.
And there's generally a big symbolic,
yes,
overarching kind of metaphor
Yeah.
deal going on.
How
In
did-
2013, it was addiction. In this one, it's definitely motherhood and parenthood in general.
How did you feel about that subtext? I don't know.
Yeah,
versus
yeah.
the 2013.
Well,
If you don't really need to compare them. One's not better
yeah,
than the other.
I kind of liked the addiction metaphor in 2013. I thought it's a pretty good one to put on this franchise. Like, it makes sense with how the deadites or demons, whatever you want to call them, like, it makes sense with how they work. It's maybe a little on the nose, but like a lot of these metaphors are a little on the nose. I wish this one had, I know I said it in our chat kind of in a facetious way, but I actually did mean it. I wish Beth was not pregnant.
Yeah.
I think having Ellie be the mother and having it be, like, we get it. Like, she has 3 kids and her husband has just bailed on her.
Yeah.
And she even makes a comment about how he thinks paying child support counts as co-parenting. I think you could have done enough with just her story, and then having Beth come in and have to be this sort of adult figure, like having it kind of force her to grow up and take on a more parental role without her having to literally be pregnant.
Yeah.
Because her being pregnant adds nothing to the story.
Yeah, it really doesn't.
It ups the stakes a tiny bit, but it's like, okay.
It also
We've already watched these children get murdered and come back, and like, like, do we really need a fetus that is so new she doesn't even have a baby bump?
Right.
Like, she's still really skinny.
Yeah.
So it's not like it physically hinders her in any way. It's not like she seems not even sort of emotionally engaged with it. The the implication is that she's shown up at Elle's house because she's freaking out.
Right.
That she's pregnant and needs Elle's help to figure out what to do about it, which doesn't sound like somebody who has decided she wants to be a mom.
Yeah. And I can't tell if that's the intention. If because
this would not make me decide to want to be a mom.
No, probably not. Although this is the most conservative Evil Dead movie because the demon does say that the fetus inside her has a soul. So
yeah, 2 souls.
There you
So
go.
I guess once you learn that, there are no options anymore.
Ash versus Roe versus Wade.
Ash versus Roe versus.
But yeah, I think you can get there. It's an easy shorthand.
Yeah.
Because this movie's like an hour 35. Like with or just right before the credits start, and that's with, let's say, 5-10 minutes of prologue.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you got to get things moving pretty quickly. Yeah, sure, she's pregnant, gets, conflicted. But I don't know if it's necessary because I think you can still get to that abandoning the family thing. She's always running from her problems.
Right. You're right. It makes Beth almost too much of an echo of the brother from the 2013 version where he's,
that's true.
the one always kind of running away and, leaving the sister to deal with it all.
Yeah. And I firmly believe when it comes to horror movies, much like Chekhov's gun, if you have a character who is pregnant and you don't do something weird and gross with that pregnancy, you should not have had it in your movie.
Well, and it's also just like she has a reason to come back. You could have just said that she finally listened to one of Ellie's voicemails and went, oh shit.
Yeah.
Your husband and the father of your 3 kids fucking abandoned you and your building's getting condemned and you're moving. Fuck it. I will come back. I will help you pack. I will help you get out of that building.
Yeah.
Like that would have been reason enough. And because this movie doesn't even really do much with the tension between the sisters.
Yeah, it really doesn't.
Like there's a couple moments where like Beth tells her sort of in so many words, she kind of says like, chill out. Like the kids are fine or it's fine. You're always like this. And a couple times Ellie calls her a groupie or other people are like, oh yeah, you're the groupie, right? And it clearly offends Beth.
It should.
and it should. Yeah. It's really derogatory, but like the movie doesn't treat it like Beth never kind of goes to her like, hey, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Can you stop? Like, you're calling me this in front of your kids, in front of your neighbors who don't even know me? Like, I get it. You're mad that I'm not around, but that's fucked up. And they never have the closest they get to a confrontation is when Ella's sort of like, yeah, my husband left. I tried to call you. I left you these voicemails and you never even responded. And then immediately after that, Beth starts listening to the voicemails and can't get through them. She's like too upset. She shuts them off. Yep. And Elle makes some sort of quip. And then they're fine again. So it's weird to sort of try and put this family tension in there. But also at the same time, the movie goes out of its way to be like, no, but this family all really likes each other. Yeah. Like the kids annoy each other, but they really like each other and they hang out. And even the little one, when she's being like extra annoying, they end up like having a tickle fight instead of like a fight. So yeah, it just feels weird. It's like, why introduce all of these points of tension if you're not going to exploit them? Yeah. Not even that much once they become demons.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where the last movie was kind of walking this line, and I think this one is also walking the line where it's like, if you're 15 minutes into an Evil Dead movie and you've got 2 sisters yelling at each other because one of them just isn't around, it's like, all right, what are we doing here?
That's true.
But that being said, I think that stuff, the way that they kind of pepper it in, they don't have to pepper more of it. I think it could have just been more focused.
Yes. That's kind of what I'm getting at. It's like, why have all of this if you don't use it? Like, you could kind of filter some of it out and still have enough in there. Like you pick one. The building's getting condemned. The husband has left. She's unexpectedly pregnant. There's an earthquake. Like,
Yes.
it just feels like a little bit like, do we need to raise the stakes anymore? I think they're pretty high.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
This building is on top of an old bank, and when said earthquake hits, it opens up a giant cavern, which leads to, apparently it was a very Christian bank, because
that was the vault that was the bank, part of the bank vault that belonged to the church.
Oh, okay. They had their own part of the vault. It wasn't like the bank was built on the church.
I think it was that they had like a private.
The Catholic, they have a lot of money.
Yes.
So,
yeah. They do.
Anyway, they find a tomb. The kids find a tomb that obviously holds the mystical Book of the Dead, which is a very cool design in this.
Yes.
I like the teeth clasp.
Oh, yeah.
It's a very nice, effective, creepy addition.
The skin cover was like well done too, because it was obviously not normal leather, but it didn't scream like human skin. You know, there wasn't like an eyeball or something that made it really like...
It had like veins all over it, which was cool.
Yeah.
And the interior was completely
great.
differently designed than the last ones too. But along with this, they find a series of vinyl album recordings
in what is now Clay's favorite expository device.
I thought it was great.
Yep.
Funny thing about this is I was talking with a friend of mine who works in the film industry, and he got approached to take a pass on doing a remake of The Gate. Have you ever seen The Gate?
Oh, that sounds really familiar, but I don't know.
It's about a gate to hell or something. Anyway, and
I keep thinking about the Ninth Gate.
This is like, it's kind of like Evil Dead for kids.
Okay.
Where there's these young kids, and then they basically open the Necronomicon in so many words.
Cool.
Anyway, the device in that movie is one of the kids finds a heavy metal album that, when played backwards, opens up the gate or something similar to that.
Sure.
And I got into an argument with my friend because part of what they wanted to do was update it and do something different, like have it be on the dark web or something. And I was like, no, we're at the point now where, because the argument was like, oh, nobody even knows what a vinyl album is anymore. It's too old. The technology's too old. And my point of view was like, yeah, that's what these devices are supposed to be.
Right.
It's not supposed to be the highest tech. It's supposed to be old tech.
Also, people are super into vinyl now.
People are super into vinyl.
Yeah.
And also, like, that's going to be... that is one of the identifying marks from that movie, I felt. And so, like, that's something that I think is worth keeping. And the technology has come back around in the public conscious enough where I think it'll play.
Right, where, like, kids, like say a bunch of 13-year-olds fucking around in a basement or an attic.
Yeah.
If they found their, great uncle's vinyl, they're going to be like, ooh.
I mean, and even if they don't know what it is...
Yeah.
That's pretty, like, he's like, what is this? Oh, I think it goes on here, and you spin it, and it starts talking. Like, that's pretty creepy.
Yeah.
And so, anyway.
As someone who has seen a 5-year-old encounter a record player for the first time and be absolutely stunned by it, I think it would work still.
Well, it does.
It does.
And the end of that story is, I went to see this movie shortly after that, and I was like,
yay.
Did you see this Evil Dead Rise? He's like, no. Why? What's in it? It's like, oh, nothing. Just a record at the center of the... Anyway. I think it's a really cool device.
Absolutely. Works really... And it makes sense, like, that they would find something like that. Like, unlike other media that might crumble more easily, in this vault just sitting there, these records, of course, they'd still work.
Right.
Just dust them off.
Yeah.
He's got a turntable. Pop him on. There you go.
Yeah.
I love it when when the mother, when she's possessed, puts her finger on it and just opens her mouth and acts as a human speaker.
Yes, that was cool.
It's awesome.
And, I think they push it even further where it's not just putting the needle down. Like, Danny has to, like, spin it manually to find the right speed.
Right.
It's very cool and very creepy because, like, records are weird. Like, they're kind of magic.
Yeah.
Obviously there's science behind it, but it is one of the more magical things that exists. I don't know how these little grooves make music.
Exactly, and there's a mechanical and tactile thing behind it as well. Again, like I was saying, I had a 5-year-old at my house, my friend's child, and he saw our record player like playing a record for the first, and he was just like, his mind was blown because he's used to iPhones and like his iPad and stuff. Maybe even like the car radio. He kind of gets that. But when he saw the record player, he had a billion questions about how it worked.
Yeah.
Because it was to him like some sort of esoteric device.
Have you ever seen like the electromagnetic microscope close up of what a record looks like?
No.
It looks like the Grand Canyon. And then the big needle comes in and just like based on how it hits, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I know I sound like an idiot, but I find it very impressive.
I know an audiophile who listens to this podcast is just like slamming their head against their desk right now.
What are you
both of
gonna
us.
do? And I am a firm believer that when it comes to this kind of stuff, analog is always a better storyteller than digital. Because digital is going to age your movie or your story very quickly unless it is explicitly about the digital technology.
Right.
It's just going to age it.
Yep.
And the tactile nature of the stuff goes a lot further than click, 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 click.
Yes.
We're at evildead.com. Oh, no.
Yeah, it's much more interesting to watch
a record instead of a flash video that opens the door.
Well, yeah, and to watch Beth have to, while everything is kind of screwed up, like the power is wonky, and like she is an audio technician, and so like getting her to watch her kind of go in and like solder things and like physically put this together and then play the record is a lot more interesting than if she just opened her laptop.
Oh, 100%.
Like and typed, like just. That would be a much more boring scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a Korean movie, I think it's Korean, called Afterlife that I saw in college that I've always really loved. It's basically about the area between before you go into the eternity after you die. You end up in this sort of like catch-all purgatory.
Is it the Bardo?
Is that where Lincoln
Don't worry about it.
is? I don't know. And the idea is you have to decide what moment from your life you want to experience for eternity. And what they do is they actually create that moment as you would on a film soundstage.
Oh.
But everything is very, very analog. So they're using like videotape and building these very rudimentary scenarios and sets and stuff. And I just thought it was brilliant because it's like, I mean, you could do like magic CGI shit or like,
right.
But it's so much more, you get so much more out of it when you can see the handcrafted nature of the stuff and they can hold these elements in their hands, and it's always better.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just more interesting to watch.
Yeah, at the end of the day, yes. So the big addition, I would say, probably the biggest addition to the lore in this movie is that on this record, one of these priests says that it is he has found one of 3 copies of Naturom Demontum.
Yes.
Now, I like this for 2 reasons. One, because it seems to be a callback to Army of Darkness, where there were 3 books. But also, depending on how you want to read it, it makes the entire franchise canon.
Yeah.
Because if you want to say Bruce Campbell's book, Mia's book, and this book are the 3 books, there you go.
Yeah. I mean, you could even argue that Bruce Campbell's book and Mia's book are the same book.
That's true.
Because they're both at the cabin and the car's there.
That's true.
And then there's this book, and there could be another book.
Well, that's another thing that that's the one thing that I'm worried about if they keep doing these.
How many books do you end up with? Yeah.
Is this like an Encyclopedia Britannica of
right. Where
Necronomicons?
people just used to sell them door to door, and every house ends up with one in their crawl space. Yeah.
You're going to need to keep coming up with ridiculous ways to get the book involved. I think if you wanted to, you could probably it's going to make things expensive, and these movies tend to be cheap. But if you started getting into like period movies, you could be like, yeah, it's 1910.
Yeah.
The book is in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
But how do you feel about the book in triplicate?
I think it makes sense. I mean, people have been copying down books for centuries and centuries. Like that is how books used to be made. There would be one version, and then a bunch of like monks and scribes would literally just spend their time copying it. And it makes sense that like the people who were doing this, whether it was like research or lore building or whatever, for, I'm just going to call it the Necronomicon.
Sure. Rolls off the tongue a lot easier.
It really does. Yeah. There's no way to save this information.
Right.
So it makes sense to me that they would be like, well, if this is my life's work, I'm of course going to make a copy. Mm-hmm. And you don't have a copy machine, so what do? You hand make another copy. You know, or if this is if this was it originated, whether it's from the Kandar people and this was a big demon worshipping cult, they probably would also have versions of their scripture. Yeah. Like having just the one book, it's risky.
Yeah. I want to see an Evil Dead movie where the evil...
It's just monks copying pages?
Well, no. See, where the demon is the demon that's binding all these books. And so what he's doing is he's getting skin from people to make these... Because that skin ain't cheap.
That's true.
You got to go out, you got to get
Except back in the day when it absolutely was cheap.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But yeah, that's the thing. It's very difficult to source skin now for these purposes. Unless you use something like Wayfair. Or one of the other services.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very cool. I think the book is cool.
Yeah, I'm not against there being a limited number of copies.
Yeah.
I don't think it should just be like you were saying. I think you run the risk of then they're popping up all over the place, and there's practically one in every household, and I don't think that's very good. But I do like that there might be variations because you know, maybe there's like a student who decides I'm going to do this other thing with it.
How do you feel about the fact that the book ostensibly disappears from the movie once the evil gets going? Because usually the first two, it's very the movie hinges very intensely on the book.
Yes.
Evil Army of Darkness, yes, also. 2013, not as much. That kind of the book is involved because it's sort of foreshadowing everything that's happening.
This one does too.
A little bit, yeah.
I think it does.
How do you feel about that too? Because that seems to be another thing they're adding is that like
there are certain steps in the progression, and they all kind of happen in the same order, in the same way.
Yeah.
I think if you think of what the demon and or demons, if what they're doing is sort of a ritual with an end goal, that makes sense to me, because like ritual and repetition and going through a process again and again is a big part of magic in general. So I'm for it in that case. Like if the end game is sort of these different phases happen and then the full form of the demon can come to Earth or whatever, then having it be this sort of structured thing makes sense to me. In this one, they definitely pivot away from the book and towards the records more. I think if you're going to have the records in the movie, similar to how they had the tape recordings in the original, it's just so much more evocative to hear these things spoken out loud than to have somebody reading it off of a page, especially in this movie where the priest who is narrating the records is in the position essentially that Beth is in and is describing how he's tried everything and he has failed. and that there is no way out of this. That's very scary and ominous.
Yeah.
Getting to hear it it adds to the atmosphere. It's very cool. I do wish that there was maybe a little bit more with the book in this, because it does feel like such an important artifact. It kind of does make you wonder in this movie if Danny playing the words on the record was enough to kick all of this off, then why did we need the book at all?
Well, that's the same thing they do in the original. Is the recording? It's either because the actual words from the book are on the recording.
But don't they need the book in the original to end it all?
They need the book to end it. Yes.
In this, they don't.
Right? Is it just they just saved the bodily dismemberment? Is that the only thing?
I mean, the priest kind of implies that nothing.
Yeah.
Is gonna, at least
Which
nothing he has
that.
at his disposal is gonna do anything. But there's clearly no like ritual or words or like things start to get scary and stressful, and the little one kind of looks to the older ones for reassurance, and the older ones try to reassure her, but they're bad at it. And they kind of want reassurance from their mom, but they don't want to admit it. And then their mom goes crazy, and their like cool but distant aunt is the one they have to rely on. And they're a little bit like, what the fuck do we do?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I get it. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they work pretty well. I think, once we get past the groan-worthy stuff at the beginning, I think they're good. I think they did a really good job with Cassie.
Yes.
Because, again, as far as like walking the line with those characters go, she very easily could have been overly precocious and like, taken over too much, and you really start to go, oh, just can somebody kill this child? But I think they handled her well.
Yep.
She kind of ends up being pushed to the background a little bit and becoming more of a, an object of tension.
Yeah.
Than anything else.
Yeah, she's like the vulnerability.
Yeah. She's got a couple good moments where, she stabs her sister through the head. Yeah. Which is nice.
With Stephanie.
Yeah. And she makes it to the end. And I think they do a good job with her.
Yeah, I do too.
So yeah, things get started, things get gross.
Things get gross.
Real gross.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about how I think part of what the function of the opening of this movie does is to prepare you for the level of gross it's going to go to.
So do you feel like it serves the same function as the opening to the 2013 one? Because that's kind of what we were thinking about there
kind
too.
of.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the only real reason I could think to include it.
Yeah.
Is to sort of give people that initial, like, oh, fuck.
I just find it so funny that you need a thesis statement for an Evil Dead movie. It's like, it's gonna get gross.
Yeah. It is kind of a weird way to structure these movies. I don't really understand why they've decided to continue to go down that route.
The 2013 one I get, because it's been 40 years, whatever, since that came out. Sure. And you're kind of putting your modern stamp on it, being like, okay, this is where we're going. Right?
Right.
But as you're saying, this movie's not that far removed from that movie.
Right.
So I kind of feel like you don't really need to reestablish that.
The thing that the older movies do that this movie does not do is that you can become possessed in the older movies and look hideous and terrifying and do all sorts of fucked up shit. He never...
These other ones do. Because they
or
have
keep
that...
reincorporating everything and trying to make it into one big amalgamation.
Yes. Yeah.
They don't need to do a grand shunting with the movies.
No. Apparently, I guess the original plan was after 2013, they were going to do... I think they were going to do another Ash movie. Oh. And then they were going to cross over Ash and Mia.
Oh.
I can't remember why they didn't do it.
Huh.
But they obviously didn't. And I think whatever those plans were, ultimately kind of morphed into Ash versus Evil Dead.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite one of the 5?
I think the first one's still my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if I was going to rank these best to, for lack of a better term, worst, I think I would probably go 2, 1, 3, 4, 5. And that's not to say that this movie's bad, but I do think it's comparatively my least favorite.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I'd agree with exactly your ranking, but I do think this one kind of trails a little bit for me.
Yeah.
It was still a fun watch. Still really glad we watched it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it hews a little bit closer to, like you were saying, a more kind of traditional demon possession movie, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
So it feels a little less fresh, a little less inventive.
I think as far as the franchise goes moving forward, I do think that this was a great move because it makes me really hopeful, or not hopeful, but like it makes me, can't find the right word, basically like showing that they are willing to change the location and the formula up a bit.
Yeah.
It makes me excited to see what they do next.
Sure.
Because I do think that this franchise, even though it's about a cabin in the woods, has shown itself to be very adaptable.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it's nice that it took sort of the more straight up horror movie formula, but took it to a new location.
Yeah. What I would be really interested to see, and I don't know if they have, if the boys in control here have more of a never mind, they already made this. I was going to say I would be interested to see if the next one that they do, or if someone down the line chooses to do something more broadly comedic. And as I was saying, it's like, well, they made 2 seasons of Ash versus Evil Dead, so they've already done that.
Yeah.
But you know, just
it does feel like it's bifurcated a little bit, where like all the comedy went in that direction, and then all the horror went in this direction. Yeah.
And you know, the movies seem to be playing it more, because I do think this franchise is a good example of that's kind of those are hard movies to sell. Yeah. If you're trying to sell
horror comedy
to a wide
they're hard
audience,
to
it's
sell
difficult.
and they're hard to do.
Oh yeah, that's the other problem.
I know I've bitched about this over and over again on this podcast, but yeah, I find horror comedies really hit or miss.
Yeah. And you're not going to do it better than Bruce Campbell.
Right.
You know, and if you did, all people are going to say is, it's not Bruce.
Right.
You know?
Right. For this specific franchise, absolutely. So
Yeah.
I do think in a way it's kind of a smart move to just say, we're not going to try to replicate that.
Yeah.
We know we can't, so we're just not going to.
Yeah.
We're going to try and give you something a little different.
Are you interested to see more if they continue to make them?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of opportunities sort of in, you know, the vein of my new favorite, Fede Alvarez, where it's like you're kind of an up-and-coming director and you could step into something like this and do something really interesting with it and kind of prove your chops and then, you know, move on from there to other stuff.
I do really like that they seem to kind of have sort of a Project Greenlight nature to this.
Yeah.
Where they're getting newer people.
Yes.
Like this guy, Lee Cronin, I think he only directed one movie before this.
Isn't he like Irish or something?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sounds like an Irish name. But yeah, and so like they clearly are getting newer voices, and they're
giving them an opportunity to play in this big sandbox with the big kind of marquee name on it.
And they're letting them do their thing too.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm going to assume this is not a case where they come to you and go, this is the movie you're going to make. Go make it. It sounds like they bring what they want to, they tell the story they want to tell, and they let them do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's going to do it for my favorite franchise, Evil Dead. What we're going to be doing moving forward.
Tell me, Claire.
I am going on a bit of a vacation. I'm going to the other side of the world, to Australia and New Zealand for a couple weeks, because that's how much I love this franchise. I want to see where they shot it.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to walk around New Zealand yelling, looking for, I don't know, Lucy Lawless? I don't know. To take me to the filming locations of Ash vs. Evil Dead.
Nice. God, that would be a tour.
Yeah. But so the next episode, we're going to be putting out the first episode of our Halloween coverage.
Yay.
So you can get into that, get ready for the spooky season.
Yes.
And then after that, we're going to be doing 5 movies from the list, since we did a bunch that weren't on the list. So they're all going to be from the list.
Yes.
And the final one of that 5 is going to probably be coming out on Halloween. And so we are going to be using the dark forces that are in the air that evening to right a wrong.
Yes.
That this podcast has
a pall that has hung over us.
Yes, for multiple years at this point.
Yes.
I would assume I don't need to tell you what that is.
But I think you should anyway.
I will tell you when we do it. I'm not going to tell you right now, but longtime listeners can probably figure it out because I was going back through the numbers and we actually cheated. We haven't
as we are wont to do.
Yes, we haven't technically actually. Our 100th episode actually technically was our 99th episode. So, with all of that in mind,
yes.
I hope everyone looks forward to Halloween. And thank you guys for listening. If you want to support the show, head over to patreon.com/thepensky-file, where I think we are going to do Ash vs. Evil Dead, the first episode. When I get back, we'll probably throw it up on Patreon. Hopefully not too long after this, so it'll still be fresh in everybody's mind.
Yes.
And check out our other series from years past and all the other stuff on there. And thank you for the support. Thank you, Amanda.
Thanks, Clay.
We'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.